My name was Ahmed. I was a judge, a pillar in my community, upheld by tradition and respect. Every day, I walked the streets of Istanbul cloaked in the weight of expectation, my thoughts hidden beneath a serious facade. I thought I had it all figured out. Firmly anchored in the teachings of Islam, yet a suffocating emptiness gnawed at me, an unresolved echo of doubt buried deep within my heart. Something was missing. As I prayed, the silence was deafening. Questions began to creep in, but fear hushed them. Was this all there was? A heartbeat of uncertainty pulsed through my life like an uninvited guest at my door. But destiny had other plans. One moment, a slight flicker, and then everything changed. I found myself trapped in darkness after an accident, a void where time and space ceased to exist. And there, in that desolation, he appeared. Jesus called my name softly, yet the power in that whisper split the darkness asunder, illuminating my soul. It wasn't just a dream, it was a cosmic revelation, unveiling the carefully woven fabric of deception that had bound me to a life of obedience and fear. I stood before him, not as a servant, but as a seeker, the chains of tradition falling away, replacing them with an undeniable love. But the return was brutal. I emerged back into a world filled with the very people I thought would understand. Instead, I became a pariah, a traitor in the eyes of my own, wrestling with guilt, balance, and newfound faith in a name that sent shockwaves through my soul. I was unanchored, navigating a tumultuous sea of isolation, yet deeply moved by the gentle tug of truth pulling me toward Christ. This journey was no longer mine alone. I felt a stirring in my spirit, a call to share this revelation, an urgency that transcended fear, urging me to speak out against the shadows that had once held me captive. I began to understand that the light I witnessed in my near-death experience was not just for my salvation, but a beacon for others lost in their personal darkness, yearning for freedom. Before we dive deeper into this profound encounter, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from, and what time is it there? Please comment below. Your voices matter in this unfolding of truth. If Jesus resonates with your heart, subscribe to Truth from Beyond, so you won't miss the next revelation in this journey of awakening. Together, let's pierce through the fog and embrace the light that beckons us all. In the conservative neighborhood of Istanbul where I lived, daily life felt tightly woven into the fabric of Islamic traditions. Grocery stores displayed the crescent moon, and the air was thick with whispered prayers that echoed through the streets. I was a judge, molded by the societal expectations that framed our lives. Every interaction was formed through the lens of reverence towards our faith, creating an oppressive silence that discouraged dissent. Among my peers, questioning the status quo felt like swimming against a relentless tide. The fear of repercussions sealed our lips, leaving us bound to unexamined beliefs. My life unfolded in rigid patterns, starting and ending with prayers that felt increasingly hollow. The authority I wielded in the courtroom contrasted sharply with the emptiness gnawing at my soul. I stood at the intersection of tradition and my own silent yearning, a longing for something more profound. Yet each day began and ended within the confines of an unquestioned faith, where rising doubts bounced violently against the walls I had built around my heart. I felt the weight of expectations pushing down on me, forcing me to conform, even as I searched for a deeper understanding of my spirit. Then came the pivotal night. As sleep enveloped me, I experienced a profound and disorienting moment that felt like I was being pulled into another realm. In the depths of that darkness, I encountered Jesus. His presence illuminated the void, replacing my fear with warmth. "You're trapped in a spiritual war," he said, the truth piercing the fabric of my reality. In that moment, everything shifted. The finality of his voice echoed in the stillness of my heart, revealing hidden agendas woven into the very teachings I had followed. Each truth unraveled before me like strings falling away, exposing the layers of deception that had concealed the essence of pure faith. In the visions that followed, I saw the world beyond my neighborhood, a tapestry of pain caused by oppressive leaders who thrived on division. I watched as conflicts erupted not because of faith, but because of the powerful elite manipulating belief systems to maintain control over society. The weight of their deception pressed down on the masses, creating barriers where unity and love were meant to flourish. I felt the urgency of my awakening deepen. It was a call to action, not just for me, but for all who sought the truth. I was shown the faces of those yearning for liberation, and the revelation ignited a fire within me, a desperate need to share this knowledge, to awaken others caught in the grip of falsehood. As I came back to consciousness, I was left with a choice that felt monumental. The revelations I had received were both a gift and a burden. How could I reconcile the world I had known with the truth I now held? The reality of what I had seen left me in turmoil. I knew my family and community would not understand, and the fear of rejection pressed heavily on my chest. I began to grasp the enormity of the spiritual war I was now part of. Every bit of resistance I encountered would only deepen my resolve. I could feel my old life slipping away, and a sense of urgency washed over me, pushing me to embrace this newly uncovered path, no matter how perilous it may be. With each new dawn, I contemplated how to act on the truths I had come to understand. The fear of isolation was daunting, yet so was the desire to share the light I had discovered with others. I envisioned gatherings of like-minded souls, united in the quest for meaning beyond the dogma that had suffocated our spirits. Each moment I spent exploring these new teachings ignited a sense of purpose within me. The divine call to awaken those around me echoed in my heart, resonating with the growing conviction that I no longer had to remain silent. The path ahead was uncertain, but the urgency of my mission became undeniable. I would stand firm in the truth, ready to confront whatever backlash awaited, for the sake of my own awakening and for the liberation of those still ensnared in the shadows of deception. I've spent the last 38 years of my life as a judge, respected in my community, and dressed in the traditional attire that speaks of authority and faith. I carry the weight of my title proudly, yet beneath that serious exterior lies a profound emptiness. Each day, I step into the courtroom, delivering judgments that weigh upon me like stone. As I listen to the pleas of those before me, I can't help but feel a dissonance between the Islamic laws I uphold and the inner turmoil that eats away at my spirit. The more I advance in this life of service, the more I grapple with the question of meaning. Is this all there is? The walls of my life seem to close in on me, filled with expectations from my community and family. The image I project does not match the tumult swirling inside. Every prayer I offer, while performed with reverence, feels increasingly like a ritual, a routine devoid of heartfelt connection. I've known accolades and respect, but with each passing day, I feel like a caged bird, longing for the freedom to pursue my own spiritual truths. I know that beneath the surface of my life lies a longing for something deeper, something that transcends the strict definitions of faith. Then came that transformative night, the catalyst for everything that followed. I had settled into bed after a long day, barely closing my eyes before slipping into a deep sleep. In that state, I encountered Jesus, his presence washing over me like a wave of light. "Ahmed," he called gently, yet with authority that reverberated through my very core. In that moment, I was filled with a sense of peace that I hadn't felt in years. He revealed to me the hidden truths about the spiritual war that raged around us, truths that were obscured by the deceptions of the elite, who manipulated faith to sow discord and confusion among the people. As the encounter unfolded, I watched as layers of deception were peeled back, exposing the reality of our world. I was shown the impacts of power struggles that stifled compassion, how the narratives pushed by those in leadership perpetuated division and fear. Wars raged not just for territory, but for the control of hearts and minds. I could see the suffering of individuals caught in the crossfire, families torn apart by ideologies that had little to do with the faith we professed. The gravity of this spiritual warfare began to settle in my heart, and I felt a fierce urgency to awaken to the reality of what was unfolding around me. This revelation ignited a fire within me. I realized my life had not only been about personal judgment, it was about awakening the people I had been called to serve. I could feel the pulsing need to share these truths with others, to break free from my own chains and encourage those around me to do the same. While the weight of past expectations loomed large, the prospect of embracing a new purpose felt liberating. I began visualizing a future where I could connect with others, teachings about love and understanding that transcended the confines of our traditional boundaries. However, the fear of condemnation from my community hovered over me like a dark cloud, threatening to extinguish the flame of hope ignited by my encounter with Jesus. Amidst all this turmoil, I felt an unquenchable desire to be part of the awakening, a call to not only seek my own truth, but to lead others toward their own liberation. Each thought propelled me forward, urging me to share my journey, no matter how daunting it seemed. I envisioned creating a movement, gathering others who had also felt the shackles of deception, ready to embrace awakening. As I stood on the precipice of this significant transformation, I understood that this was merely the beginning of my journey, a journey not just for myself, but for countless others who were waiting to break free from the darkness that had held them captive for too long. As I continued to perform my daily prayers, a growing void began to seep into my spirit. What once felt like a direct line to the divine turned into an exercise in futility. I knelt on my mat, reciting verses I had known by heart for decades. Yet instead of peace, I felt more isolated and increasingly unsure of my faith. The whispers of doubt echoed in my mind, stitching together questions I could hardly bear to voice. Was this truly the path of righteousness? Or had I been ensnared by a belief system designed to confine me? I couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that the very religion that had once provided solace might now be a hidden trap, a organized deception meant to control my beliefs and actions. As the days faded into weeks, the void turned into restless nights. Unsettling dreams plagued me, twisting into visions that felt too vivid to dismiss. In one dream, I found myself trapped within a darkened room, surrounded by figures cloaked in shadows. Their voices whispered words of condemnation, drowning out the light of my faith. I would wake up gasping, my heart racing, as if trying to escape the weight of their judgment. Each dream mirrored my internal conflict, intensifying the struggle between adherence to my beliefs and my growing desire for spiritual freedom. The tension became unbearable as I grappled with the implications of what it meant to break free from the chains I had once cherished. Then, one fateful night, everything changed. As I drifted into sleep, exhaustion cloaked me, and I sank into what felt like the depths of my very soul. In that otherworldly space, I was confronted by the radiant presence of Jesus. At first, it struck me as surreal, the vision of him standing before me, filled with compassion and love. Ahmed. He spoke softly, yet authoritatively, and my heart quickened at the sound of his voice. In that moment, every doubt, every fear began to dissolve as the light of revelation washed over me. Felt like a caged bird suddenly freed, pulsing with the actualization of truths I had long sought, but failed to grasp in waking life. In his presence, I was shown the intricate layers of deception that had shaped not only my beliefs, but the fabric of society itself. This is a spiritual war, he revealed, and I felt the weight of his message enveloping me. He exposed the hidden agendas that thrived on division, perpetuated by an elite few who manipulated faith for their own gain. I witnessed families torn apart and communities shattered, all while those in power maintained their grip through fear and misinformation. I was overwhelmed by the depth of this revelation, forced to confront the reality that the foundations of my life had been built on lies designed to keep us divided and submissive. As I returned to consciousness, I felt a mixture of liberation and fear. The truths that Jesus had shown me were now etched into my mind and spirit, igniting an urgency to share this awakening with others. I realized I could no longer remain silent or compliant. The flicker of hope sparked my heart, but the looming threat of rejection from my community remained. How could I convey this revelation without facing backlash from those I had once called family? The weight of what lay ahead was daunting, yet the conviction within me grew stronger. I understood that my journey was not solely for my own liberation, but for the countless souls still trapped in the web of deception. It became increasingly clear that I had a duty to speak, to rally others towards enlightenment, and to shed light on the hidden agendas that sought to suppress the truth. It was a typical evening driving home from the courthouse, the sun setting behind the familiar skyline of Istanbul, casting an orange glow over the bustling streets. But then, in an instant, everything changed. A flash of headlights, the screeching of tires, and the impact felt like the world crashing around me. I lost consciousness, my last thoughts filled with a sense of dread that I hadn't fully understood until that moment. What followed was an experience that would forever alter the course of my life. When I regained awareness, I found myself standing in a vast, dark desert. The sky was an all-consuming black, riddled with stars that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. Confusion washed over me. Where was I? As I took a few hesitant steps on the fine grains of sand, a sense of helplessness swept through me. It was then that I heard a voice that felt like a gentle breeze weaving through the chaos. "Ahmed!" it called, my name resonating with an authority that sent shivers down my spine. As I turned, I saw him, Jesus. His presence enveloped me in a glow that dispelled the darkness surrounding us. In that moment, time ceased to exist. Jesus stood before me with compassion radiating from his being. "You are in the midst of a spiritual war," he revealed, and I felt the weight of those words settle deep within me. He began to unveil the layers of deception that had clouded my existence, exposing the hidden agenda of those who manipulated the truth for their own gain. I was shown visions of the elite, pulling strings behind the scenes to foster division and strife, using faith as a weapon to maintain their control over the hearts and minds of countless souls. I felt the urgency of this revelation pulse through my veins as I witnessed the effects of their manipulation. Wars fueled by false narratives, entire communities torn apart by misplaced loyalties, and the suffering inflicted on innocent lives. The realization ignited something profound within me, a flame of awareness that fueled my desire to confront the deception that had dominated my life and the lives of so many others. Here I was, standing face to face with the embodiment of truth, grasping the stark contrast between the teachings I had followed and the actual love and freedom Jesus represented. But as the visions unfolded, a deep conflict stirred inside me. How could I reconcile this experience with my past? Back in Istanbul, I held a position of authority, which suddenly felt precarious. I could see my family, my friends, the community I had served for years, all of them steeped in the very beliefs that I now questioned. The fear of rejection loomed large as I stood in the desert, torn between the truth I had just discovered and the life I had led. Jesus' voice calmed my racing heart, reminding me that the call to awaken others was not just for me. It was a part of something larger. As I took in the enormity of his words, I felt an overwhelming sense of hope. This wasn't merely a journey for personal salvation. It was an invitation to lead others out of the darkness that had entrapped them. I envisioned a future where families could unite in compassion instead of division, where hearts could embrace love over condemnation. But the path ahead was riddled with uncertainty. I hadn't yet grasped the full weight of the decision I was about to make. The awakening had begun, but I understood that my journey was only just starting. A journey filled with both peril and promise. I could feel the flames of truth igniting within me, beckoning me to move forward, ready to confront whatever awaited me on this uncharted path. When I returned, the burden of what I had experienced weighed heavily on my shoulders. I had stood before Jesus, felt his compassion, and had been changed forever. Yet, as I stepped back into my life, the reality of my new understanding clashed violently with the world around me. The moment I shared my revelation, my family looked at me like a stranger, their faces hardened by disbelief and anger. "How could you betray us?" they said, their words cutting deeper than I had thought possible. I was branded a heretic and a traitor, an outsider in the very community that had once embraced me. The rejection was palpable, and it echoed in the silence that followed my declaration. Every corner of my home felt foreign, as if the walls themselves were infused with the weight of unspoken judgments. I found myself alone in my thoughts, grappling with an acute internal crisis that left me feeling hollow. The joy of my encounter with Jesus was now met with waves of guilt and loneliness. In the evenings, I would sit in the dark, the weight of my family's disappointment pressing down on me like a physical burden. I wondered if expressing my faith in Jesus was worth the anguish that came with it. Each prayer became a reminder of the chasm that had formed between me and the people I loved. Amidst this turmoil, I felt an overwhelming urge to explore the truth further. My dreams became increasingly unsettled, mirroring the conflict I experienced in my waking life. I would often dream of a vast desert, a symbol of my isolation, where I wandered aimlessly, searching for answers. Yet, in those dreams, I also felt the comforting presence of Jesus guiding me, reminding me of the light I had encountered. These experiences created a tension in my soul, a push and pull between the world I had known and the truths I was uncovering. The revelations continued to unfold in my mind. I realized the spiritual war was greater than my own experience. It stretched across society, fueled by hidden agendas designed to keep us divided, manipulated by an elite few who thrived on the deception. I could see how false narratives perpetuated conflict and stifled unity. The weight of this understanding bore down on me, and I knew I had to share it, not just for my sake, but for others caught in the same web of influence. I grappled with how to do this when the very people I loved seemed to shun me for seeking a different truth. In those solitary moments, I clung to the hope that enlightenment was possible, that my family might one day understand the journey I had embarked on. I envisioned a future where I could bridge the gap, where truth could reconcile the differences that divided us. But the fear of rejection still loomed large as I pondered the challenges ahead. Would I have the courage to face the backlash, to spread the message that burned within me? With every heartbeat, I felt the urgency increase. The tension between the past and an awakened future left me hanging in the balance, ready to take the next step, but uncertain of what lay ahead. The battle for my soul was just beginning, and I could not ignore the call of Jesus to awaken not just myself, but those who were still trapped in the shadows. In the quiet hours of the night, away from the scrutiny of my family and community, I began my secret pursuit of truth. The weight of my newfound understanding pressed heavy on my heart, and I found myself yearning to delve deeper into the teachings of Jesus. Armed with a Bible hidden beneath my floorboards, I would steal away to read, my heart racing with both excitement and fear. Each passage ignited a spark within me, illuminating the darkness that had clouded my spirit for so long. I felt as though I was opening a door to a world of understanding that had been kept hidden from me, a world where love and grace could eclipse the fear I had known. As I immersed myself in the Word, I sought out others who shared similar experiences. I found a small group of people who, like me, had embarked on a journey of transformation. In clandestine meetings, we shared our stories, our struggles, and our hopes. These meetings became a refuge for me, a place where I didn't have to hide my questions or fear the judgment of those around me. Each story I heard resonated deeply, and with every encounter I felt a growing sense of community. We were bound by our collective awakening, a united front against the deceptions that had gripped our lives. Yet alongside the peace I found in this newfound community, a persistent fear lurked beneath the surface. I was terrified of what it could mean for my life, the life I had built, the titles I held, and the connections with my family that were now strained. Each time I interacted with my loved ones, I felt an invisible wall growing between us, built from my silence about my awakening. The thought of losing everything familiar haunted me day and night. Would my family still love me? Would I be cast out, labeled a traitor and a heretic forever? Those questions gnawed at my soul, causing a whirlwind of anxiety and guilt. As the conflict raged within, I found solace in prayer. One evening, overwhelmed by emotion, I fell to my knees and poured my heart out to Jesus. "Help me understand," I cried. "Guide my path and give me strength to confront this fear." In that vulnerable moment, I felt His presence surrounding me, comforting me as He whispered words of encouragement that resonated deeply within my spirit. I understood that my journey was about more than just myself. It was about fulfilling a divine purpose that demanded courage in the face of uncertainty. Days later, I experienced the culmination of my spiritual rebirth. Hidden beneath the surface, I participated in an underground baptism. The act felt weighty, yet liberating, a declaration of my commitment to follow Jesus and embrace the truth I had discovered. As the water enveloped me, I emerged anew, free from the chains of my past and the fear that had threatened to consume me. I knew that this step would lead me further along the path of awakening, yet I also understood the sacrifice it required. With every drop of water washed away, I felt renewed both in spirit and resolve. The spiritual war was real, but so was my newfound determination to carry the light of truth into the darkness that surrounded me. With a blend of apprehension and hope, I began to contemplate the uncharted territory that lay ahead. Realizing that my encounter with Jesus was not merely for my own benefit, left me with a profound sense of purpose. It became clear that I was being called to serve as a messenger, an advocate for those still trapped in the deception that had long held them captive. As I pondered this revelation, I felt an urgency building within me. A spiritual war was unfolding right outside my door, and I couldn't afford to remain silent. The truth I had discovered demanded to be shared, and I became aware of a divine responsibility to warn others. With each passing day, the weight of my own transformation pressed heavily on my heart. I understood the risks associated with exposing my beliefs. The very community that had once embraced me now loomed large as a potential threat. Yet I was compelled by the love and compassion that Jesus embodied. I knew that staying silent would mean complicity in the hidden agenda crafted to divide and control. My faith in the truth I now upheld drove me to distraction, fueling my search for a way to help others awaken to the spiritual deceptions that pervaded our society. As I immersed myself deeper in this mission, I found myself reconnecting with like-minded individuals who shared my desire for awakening. We gathered in secret, forming a small community that felt like a lifeline amidst the uncertainty that surrounded us. Each meeting was filled with emotion, stories of personal journeys flowing freely as we encouraged one another to embrace the path laid before us. I felt the weight of shared experiences, the suffering we had all endured, creating a bond that transcended the divisions that previously defined our lives. Our discussions ignited a flame within me, as I realized that each of us could serve as a catalyst for change in others. However, as I took steps toward this new purpose, the fear of potential ostracization still loomed. I feared I would lose not just the approval of my family and community, but, more critically, their love. Would they see this journey as a betrayal? The anxiety gnawed at my insides, but it was overshadowed by the resounding truth that echoed in my heart. This was a matter of life and death, both spiritually and physically. The urgency to speak out became a consuming passion, compelling me to find ways to convey the truth I had encountered. Through prayer and contemplation, I committed myself to the mission ahead. I envisioned organizing gatherings to share the revelations that Jesus had bestowed upon me. My heart brimmed with the hope that, through sharing our stories, we could collectively ignite awakenings in others. The world outside was laden with strife and division, and I understood that it would take a concerted effort to fight the forces that sought to manipulate our beliefs. The urgency of the spiritual war unfurled before me like a banner, and I felt ready to stand in the light, a beacon for truth amidst the darkness, committed to confronting the hidden agendas that suffocated the spirit of love and unity. Each step I took toward my purpose felt like a declaration of war against the deception plaguing our lives, and I was determined to fight. For those still in chains, the decision to leave my home felt monumental, a crossroads marked by courage and liberation. Standing in my modest living room, I took in the familiar surroundings that had once been a haven. Now they felt like prison walls, confining me in a life that no longer resonated with my spirit. My dreams of encountering Jesus had ignited a fire within me, revealing the truth that lay hidden beneath layers of tradition and expectation. Yet I also recognized the peril lurking in my choice to follow this newfound path. The fear of persecution loomed like a shadow, reminding me of the risks that came with breaking free. The world outside awaited, a realm filled with possibilities and uncertainty. I knew there were those who would not understand my journey, who would view my departure as a betrayal. But deep down, I felt an overwhelming sense of liberation amidst the pain. As I packed my few belongings, I let go of the fear that had previously held me captive. I chose to embrace the truth that Jesus had revealed to me, the revelation that sparked my awakening and called me to a greater mission. Each item I placed in my bag symbolized a strand of my old identity, shedding the layers that defined me within a tightly woven community. With every step toward my new life, I felt the chains of doubt slip away. I knew that I had been called to an evangelistic mission, to spread the seeds of change within my community. Although the path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, I felt the pulse of purpose guiding me forward. As I walked into this new chapter, I envisioned not only my own transformation, but the potential to inspire others who felt trapped in the same shadows of deception. The urgency of the spiritual war around us intensified my resolve to reach out, to connect with those whose hearts still yearned for liberation. As I ventured into unfamiliar territory, the overwhelming sense of freedom washed over me like waves against the shore. Despite the sorrow of leaving behind my family and friends, I found solace and strength in my commitment to share the truth I had discovered. Each person I encountered became a potential beacon of hope. I envisioned gatherings in secret, where we could discuss the truths Jesus had shown me, where we could encourage one another to rise against the hidden agendas that sought to manipulate our spirits. This was not just my journey. It was a collective awakening waiting to unfold. In the midst of my newfound purpose, I felt the weight of responsibility settle upon my shoulders. I was determined to share the message that had changed me, even if it meant facing the possibility of rejection from those I once held dear. The fight against deception was not merely an internal struggle, it was a battle for the souls of many. I felt the urgency of this mission deepen within me, fueling my desire to act boldly and compassionately. It was time to step into the fray, to embrace the calling that awaited me, and with every heartbeat, I knew that I was finally free. A new beginning was on the horizon, and I was ready to walk that path, sharing the love and truth I had found with the world. As I stand here, reflecting on this journey from the darkness that almost consumed me to the radiant light of truth, I need to ask you something deeply personal. Are you too feeling the pull of a higher calling? Are you awakening to the realization that we are all part of something much larger, a spiritual battle for hearts and minds? In the silence of your own thoughts, do you hear the whispers of something beyond the mundane, a beckoning to seek a deeper understanding of your existence? This urgent awakening I experienced is not solely mine. It resonates within each of us, urging us to confront the shadows that have been woven into the fabric of our lives. Just as I stepped into the light, you too can break free from the chains of deception that hold you back. Wherever you are in your journey, remember, you are not alone. There is a community yearning for truth, ready to embrace the liberation that only the love of Jesus can bring. And you are an integral part of it. Now, I invite you to share your experiences and thoughts below. Have you ever felt a stirring in your spirit that led you to question your beliefs? Your voice matters. Together, we can learn from one another and reflect on how we can step into the light of truth. And if this message resonates with you, don't forget to subscribe to Truth from Beyond and ring that notification bell. Your journey toward enlightenment deserves to be illuminated with every new revelation we uncover together. In our next video, I'll unveil another incredible testimony that will challenge your understanding of faith and connection. Someone else who faced their own spiritual crisis and emerged transformed by love and truth awaits to inspire you. I'm Ahmed, and I want to thank you for joining me on this profound exploration of faith. Remember, the truth calls to those brave enough to listen. Embrace it,